In a distant galaxy, a group of alien pilots gathered for a famous race through an asteroid maze. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and energy. These aliens were the best pilots in the universe, known for their incredible skills and advanced ships. They had come from different planets, each showcasing their unique technologies and boasting about their flying abilities. Among the crowd, one voice stood out. "I can beat any of you." It was Jake, a human who had traveled from Earth to participate in the race. His declaration caught everyone's attention. The aliens turned to look at him, their eyes wide with disbelief and amusement. "A human thinks he can fly," they whispered among themselves, laughing. Jake stood tall, undeterred by their mockery. He had dreamed of this moment for years. As a child, he had always been fascinated by space and the idea of flying. He spent countless nights staring at the stars, imagining himself soaring through the cosmos. Now, here he was, ready to take on the best pilots in the galaxy. One of the alien pilots, a tall creature with blue skin and sharp features named Varkin, stepped forward. "You think you can fly our ship?" he challenged, pointing at the Unflyable vessel resting on the starting line. It was a massive craft, designed for alien pilots with complex controls that humans couldn't possibly understand. "You'll never survive the asteroid maze." Jake met Varkin's gaze. "I'm not afraid. I'll take that challenge," he replied with determination. The crowd fell silent, surprised by his bravery. This human was serious about racing, and they could sense his passion. But deep down, many of them believed he had no chance against their advanced technology. The alien pilots began to talk among themselves, exchanging skeptical glances. "He'll crash before he even starts," whispered one. "No human can handle that ship," another added, snickering. But Jake ignored their doubts. He was focused on the task ahead. As the day of the race approached, Jake worked hard to prepare. He studied the vessel, trying to learn everything he could about its controls. He watched videos of previous races, taking notes on how the alien pilots maneuvered through the dangerous asteroid maze. It was a challenge, but Jake was determined to prove that humans could fly just as well. The day of the race arrived. Aliens from all over the galaxy gathered to watch, their eyes shining with excitement and curiosity. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and chatter. Colorful banners waved in the wind, celebrating the event. Jake felt nervous but excited. He was ready to show the universe what a human could do. As the other pilots took their turns, Jake watched closely. They flew with grace and precision, weaving through the asteroids with ease. Each one seemed to dance among the rocks, showcasing their skills. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause for each successful flight. Jake felt his heart race with every twist and turn. Could he really compete with these elite pilots? When it was finally Jake's turn, he climbed into the ship, his heart pounding. The interior of the vessel was strange and intimidating, filled with buttons and screens he had never seen before. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that he had trained hard for this moment. He recalled his determination to succeed and the support of his friends back on Earth. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1, go. The moment the race started, Jake pressed the throttle. The ship sputtered and shook, making strange noises. The aliens held their breath, watching in disbelief. They expected him to crash within seconds. But Jake focused on the controls, determined to stay calm. As he launched into the sky, the ship wobbled and tilted. For a moment, he thought he might lose control, but he quickly adjusted. He remembered his training and the techniques he had practiced. Slowly but surely, the ship stabilized. The crowd gasped in surprise, realizing that maybe, just maybe, this human had a chance. With newfound confidence, Jake navigated towards the asteroid maze. The view was breathtaking, with asteroids of all shapes and sizes floating in space. It was beautiful yet dangerous. He gripped the controls tightly, feeling the ship respond to his commands. The cheers from the crowd grew louder as he started to gain speed. As he entered the maze, Jake's heart raced even faster. The narrow paths between the asteroids loomed ahead, and he knew he had to be careful. But he also felt exhilarated, ready to prove everyone wrong. The aliens had underestimated him, and he was determined to show them what a human could achieve. With each turn, Jake pushed the ship to its limits, feeling the thrill of the race surge through him. He could hear the crowd cheering for him, their voices filled with excitement. For the first time, he felt like he truly belonged among the stars, racing against the best pilots in the galaxy. Learning the ropes, Jake stared at the massive ship in front of him. It loomed like a giant beast, its sleek surface reflecting the light of distant stars. He had dreamed of flying a vessel like this, but now that he was here, excitement mingled with fear. He was about to learn how to control a craft that no human had ever flown before. In the days leading up to the race, Jake dedicated himself to understanding every inch of the ship. He spent hours studying the control panel, filled with buttons and screens that seemed to shimmer with alien technology. Each button was labeled in a language he didn't understand, and at times, he felt overwhelmed. But he was determined to figure it out. After all, if he wanted to prove himself to the aliens, he had to master this ship. He started with the basics. Jake recalled his childhood, where he had built model airplanes out of cardboard and plastic. Those simple creations had sparked his love for flying. Now he needed to apply that passion to this enormous ship. He ran his fingers over the control panel, trying to familiarize himself with the layout. The ship hummed quietly, as if encouraging him to keep going. One day, he met an alien technician named Zira. She had bright green skin and large, curious eyes. Unlike the other pilots, Zira seemed genuinely interested in helping him. "You can't just push buttons," she said, gesturing at the control panel. "You need to understand how everything works together." Jake nodded, eager to learn. Zira showed him how to read the gauges and understand the ship's systems. She explained the importance of balance and how to use the ship's thrusters to maneuver through tight spaces. As she talked, Jake felt more confident. He practiced simple movements, like lifting off and landing. With every small success, his excitement grew. However, there were moments of frustration. Sometimes, the ship would not respond the way he expected. It would shake or veer off course. Each time, Jake felt his heart sink. He worried that he would never be able to master this craft. But Zira encouraged him. "Every pilot struggles at first," she reminded him. "Just keep trying." Determined to improve, Jake spent late nights in the ship's cockpit, practicing the controls. He used a simulation program to fly through virtual asteroid fields. The program created a realistic environment, and Jake felt as if he were actually in space. He learned how to react quickly to sudden obstacles and how to adjust his speed. Each session helped him grow more comfortable with the ship, and he began to feel a sense of control. One evening, as he practiced, Jake found himself daydreaming about the race. He imagined the crowd cheering for him, the thrill of flying through the maze, and the moment he proved the aliens wrong. This vision fueled his determination to learn even faster. He knew he had to be ready. The race was just around the corner. As the days passed, Jake became more skilled. He learned to use the ship's sensors to detect nearby asteroids and plan his routes. He practiced making quick turns and adjusting his speed to navigate through tight spaces. With Zira's guidance, he started to feel like a real pilot. But the other alien pilots were still skeptical. They watched him with amusement, whispering among themselves as they trained in their sleek, advanced ships. "He'll never make it through the maze," one of them said, laughing. Jake overheard their comments, and instead of feeling discouraged, he felt more determined than ever. He wanted to show them that he was capable of incredible things. One afternoon, as he practiced alone, Jake decided to test his skills in a nearby asteroid field. It wasn't part of the official course, but he wanted to push himself. He took a deep breath and launched the ship into the maze of asteroids. The ship responded smoothly under his control, and Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. He navigated through the rocks, dodging and weaving, gaining confidence with each move. Suddenly, a large asteroid appeared in front of him. Jake had to think fast. He pulled the control stick to the right, feeling the ship tilt. With a quick thrust of power, he shot past the massive rock, barely missing it. The exhilaration of the near miss sent a thrill through him. He couldn't help but grin. He was starting to get the hang of this. After that successful practice run, Jake returned to the hangar, feeling accomplished. Zira was waiting for him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I saw you out there," she exclaimed. "You're really improving." Her encouragement made him feel proud. It was nice to have someone believe in him. With the race just days away, Jake knew he had to keep pushing himself. He continued to practice, refining his skills and boosting his confidence. He learned to trust his instincts, realizing that sometimes it was okay to take risks. Each time he flew, he felt closer to the goal of not just participating in the race, but winning it. As he prepared for the big day, Jake thought about how far he had come. From a nervous human unsure of himself to a determined pilot ready to take on the galaxy, he felt a sense of pride. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it. The aliens had no idea what he was capable of, and soon they would find out. Race day. The sun shone brightly over the spaceport as the day of the race finally arrived. Excitement filled the air, and a crowd of alien spectators gathered, their colorful skin glimmering under the light. Banners waved in the breeze, celebrating the event and the best pilots in the galaxy. Jake could feel the energy all around him, and his heart raced with anticipation. As Jake walked towards the launch area, he saw alien pilots preparing their ships. They moved with confidence, checking their instruments and fine-tuning their vessels. Their ships looked sleek and powerful, with shimmering surfaces that reflected the brilliance of the stars. Jake felt a mix of nerves and determination. He had trained hard for this moment, but would it be enough? He reached his ship, the unflyable vessel that had once seemed so intimidating. Now it felt like an extension of himself. He climbed aboard, taking a deep breath. The cockpit was filled with buttons and screens, each one glowing and waiting for his command. He remembered Zira's words about staying calm and focused. "You can do this," he whispered to himself. The other pilots cast glances at him, some with pity, others with laughter. Varkin, the blue-skinned pilot who had mocked him before, smirked as he prepared his own ship. "Good luck, human," he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Jake gritted his teeth but didn't let their words get to him. He was here to race, not to impress anyone. As the countdown began, Jake felt his heart pounding. 5, 4, 3. The excitement grew, and he closed his eyes for a moment, picturing the asteroid maze ahead. He could see himself flying through the obstacles, dodging asteroids with grace. 2, 1, go. The signal echoed in his ears, and he pressed the throttle. The ship roared to life, and Jake felt the force of the engines pushing him back into his seat. He launched into the sky, and the crowd erupted in cheers. The feeling was exhilarating. He was finally flying. The vessel felt powerful under his control, and he quickly steadied himself, guiding it toward the maze. As he entered the asteroid field, the massive rocks surrounded him like a storm. Jake's eyes widened, but he focused on the path ahead. He remembered his training and how to read the ship's sensors. The maze was filled with obstacles, but he was ready to face them. He weaved through the asteroids, dodging and turning with newfound confidence. The aliens watching from the sidelines were stunned. They had expected Jake to crash and burn, but he was holding his own. As he maneuvered through the maze, the cheers grew louder. Each successful pass brought a smile to his face, and he felt the thrill of competition coursing through him. For the first time, he believed he could do this. As he navigated deeper into the maze, Jake found himself facing a series of tight turns and narrow gaps. He remembered Zira's advice about staying calm under pressure. "Trust your instincts," she had said. Jake took a deep breath and concentrated. He pulled the control stick to the right, feeling the ship tilt and shift. The rocks rushed by, but he remained focused. Suddenly, a massive asteroid appeared directly in his path. Panic surged through him for a split second, but he quickly adjusted. He yanked the control stick to the left and hit the thrusters. The ship responded perfectly, gliding past the obstacle with inches to spare. The crowd gasped and then erupted in applause. Jake could hardly believe it. He had done it. Feeling energized, he continued to push forward. He discovered a rhythm, finding the right speed and angles to navigate through the maze. Each turn felt more natural, and the initial fear faded into exhilaration. He could hear the cheers of the crowd echoing in his ears, and it spurred him on. As he neared the final section of the maze, Jake spotted Varkan ahead. The blue-skinned pilot was fast and skilled, but Jake was determined not to let him get away. With a burst of speed, he pushed the ship harder, closing the gap. The two ships raced side by side, each pilot giving it their all. Varkan glanced over, his expression turning from smugness to surprise. "You're better than I thought," he shouted, but Jake didn't respond. He was too focused on the finish line ahead. As they approached the last set of asteroids, Jake took a risk. He veered to the right, squeezing through a narrow gap that Varkan hesitated to attempt. Jake's heart raced as he pulled ahead. The ship flew through the gap, and the thrill of the moment sent adrenaline rushing through him. He could see the finish line in the distance, and the crowd was on their feet, cheering wildly. It was a breathtaking sight, and he felt a surge of pride. With one final push, Jake accelerated towards the finish line. He crossed it with a triumphant roar from the engines, the crowd erupting into cheers. He had done it. The other pilots looked stunned, their faces filled with disbelief. Jake felt a wave of joy wash over him. He had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. As he landed the ship, Jake could hardly contain his excitement. He climbed out of the cockpit, and the crowd rushed forward, chanting his name. Jake, Jake, Jake. Their cheers filled the air, and he realized he had not only completed the race, but had also earned their respect. In that moment, he knew he had changed their perceptions of humans forever. Jake had shown them that with determination and hard work, anything was possible, even flying an unflyable ship through a deadly maze of asteroids. The launch. The excitement in the air was palpable as Jake prepared for the launch of the second race. After his surprising victory, the aliens were buzzing with anticipation. They had never seen a human pilot so skilled, and they were eager to watch him fly again. Jake felt a mix of confidence and nerves as he walked towards the ship, the unflyable vessel that had become his trusted companion. As he approached, Jake saw his ship shining in the sunlight. The cockpit was familiar now, a place where he felt at home. He climbed inside and took a deep breath, reminding himself of all the hard work he had put in. He was ready. The crowd outside began to gather, their excited chatter filling the air. Jake could see their curious faces, eager to witness another thrilling race. This time, Jake was determined to prove that his first victory was not just a fluke. He wanted to show the aliens that humans could compete at their level. As he sat in the cockpit, he reviewed the strategy he had developed during his training. He had learned to trust his instincts, and he was ready to take on the challenge. The race was set to take place in a different part of the asteroid maze, a section that was even more dangerous and unpredictable. Jake knew he would have to be on his game. He took a moment to check the controls, ensuring everything was in working order. The ship responded smoothly to his touch, and he felt a surge of confidence. He had trained hard, and now it was time to put that training to the test. As the countdown began, Jake's heart raced with anticipation. 5, 4, 3. The tension in the air was thick, and the crowd held its breath. Jake focused on the maze ahead, visualizing the path he would take. He thought about the obstacles he would face and how he could overcome them. 2, 1, go. The moment the signal rang out, he pressed the throttle. The The ship roared to life, its engines screaming with power as it launched into the sky. Jake felt the familiar force pushing him back into his seat, and he grinned with excitement. The crowd erupted in cheers, their enthusiasm fueling his determination. He was finally flying again, ready to conquer the asteroid maze. As Jake entered the maze, he quickly scanned his surroundings. The asteroids loomed large, casting shadows across his path. He remembered his training and the techniques he had practiced. With a deep breath, he began to navigate through the rocky landscape, weaving and dodging as he went. The thrill of racing coursed through him, and he felt more alive than ever. The first few turns were challenging, but Jake was in the zone. He moved with precision, feeling the ship respond perfectly to his commands. The crowd cheered as he darted through the narrow gaps between the asteroids. He could hear their excitement, and it pushed him to fly faster and more confidently. Suddenly, a large asteroid appeared directly in front of him. Jake's heart skipped a beat, but he remembered Zira's advice. He pulled the control stick to the right and hit the thrusters, narrowly missing the massive rock. The ship shook, but he held steady. The crowd gasped, and then erupted into cheers once more. Jake smiled, knowing he was giving them a show. As he continued deeper into the maze, Jake felt a surge of adrenaline. He was starting to find his rhythm, moving smoothly through the obstacles. He knew the stakes were higher this time, and he had to stay sharp. The other pilots were skilled, and he could hear their ships roaring behind him. He had to maintain his lead. Glancing at his sensors, Jake noticed that one of the alien pilots was closing in on him. It was Varkan, the blue-skinned pilot who had doubted him from the start. Jake felt a fire in his belly. He wanted to prove he could beat him again. He focused on the path ahead, determined to hold his ground. As they approached a particularly narrow section of the maze, Jake made a decision. He remembered a maneuver he had practiced, an aggressive turn that could give him an edge. With a quick flick of the control stick, he veered sharply left, making his ship twist through the narrow gap. The asteroids seemed to rush past him in a blur. Jake heard the crowd roar as he executed the move flawlessly. He could see Varkan hesitate behind him, unable to follow. Jake's heart soared with pride. He was proving himself, and it felt incredible. But he couldn't let up. He had to keep pushing forward. Suddenly, the maze opened up to a wider space, but it was filled with obstacles. The asteroids floated freely, and Jake had to think quickly. He scanned the area, looking for the best route. With each passing second, he could feel Varkan gaining ground. There was no time to waste. Jake remembered the importance of speed and control. He accelerated, expertly weaving between the asteroids. His ship felt alive beneath him, responding to his every command. The thrill of the race filled him with energy, and he pushed himself harder. As he rounded a sharp corner, he spotted the finish line in the distance. A wave of excitement washed over him. He was so close, but he couldn't let his guard down. Varkan was right behind him, and the other pilots were not far behind either. Jake took a deep breath, focusing on the path ahead. He could hear the crowd cheering louder than ever, their excitement spurring him on. With one final burst of speed, he propelled the ship forward, crossing the finish line in a spectacular display of skill. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices blending into a deafening roar. Jake had done it again. He climbed out of the cockpit, feeling a mix of pride and joy. He had not only survived the launch, but had also proven to the aliens that he belonged in their ranks. As he stood there, surrounded by the cheering crowd, Jake realized that this was more than just a race. It was a moment of triumph, a chance to show that determination and hard work could overcome any obstacle. And in that moment, he knew he had truly become a part of this extraordinary galaxy. Navigating the maze. The atmosphere in the spaceport buzzed with excitement after Jake's second victory. He had not only proven himself to the alien pilots, but had also captured the attention of the entire galaxy. As he walked through the crowd, he felt the weight of their admiration. His heart swelled with pride, But he knew the challenges were far from over. The real test was about to begin. After the race, Jake met with Zira in the hangar. She looked thrilled but also serious. "You've done well, Jake, but the next phase of the race is the hardest yet. The asteroid maze has a new section that's more dangerous and complicated than the previous ones," she warned, her eyes wide with concern. Jake nodded, determined to take on the challenge. "I'm ready," he replied, his voice steady. He had trained hard and learned so much. He was eager to prove himself again, not just to the aliens but to himself. As he prepared for the next race, Jake spent hours studying the new section of the maze. The diagram showed a tangled web of asteroids, with twists and turns that could easily confuse any pilot. The more he looked, the more complex it appeared. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that he had successfully navigated the previous maze. This one would be no different. The day of the race arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The crowd filled the spaceport, their cheers echoing off the walls. Jake climbed into his ship, focusing on the control panel. It felt familiar now, like a second home. As he settled into the cockpit, he visualized the path through the maze, running through the turns and potential obstacles in his mind. The countdown began, and Jake's heart raced with anticipation. 5, 4, 3. The excitement in the air was thick. He remembered the thrill of the previous races, the rush of adrenaline as he flew through the asteroid fields. 2, 1, go. The moment the signal sounded, he pressed the throttle, launching into the sky. Jake felt the power of the ship beneath him as he soared into the maze. The asteroids loomed ahead, some large, others small, and all unpredictable. He quickly scanned the area, looking for the best route. The first section of the maze was crowded with asteroids, and he needed to find a way through without crashing. As he navigated the first twists and turns, Jake relied on his training. He remembered Zira's advice to stay calm and focused. With every move, he felt more confident. The ship responded to his commands, weaving smoothly between the obstacles. The crowd cheered him on, their voices echoing through the air. Suddenly, Jake encountered a narrow gap between two large asteroids. His heart raced, but he knew this was a crucial moment. He pulled the control stick to the right, expertly maneuvering through the small space. The ship shook slightly, but he held steady. As he emerged from the other side, the crowd erupted into applause. "Keep going, Jake," he heard someone shout. The encouragement fueled his determination. He pressed forward, navigating through the twists and turns of the maze. The thrill of flying was intoxicating, and he felt alive. However, the maze was not finished testing him. As he entered a tighter section, he spotted an enormous asteroid blocking his path. Panic surged through him for a moment, but he quickly assessed his options. He had practiced for this. He yanked the control stick to the left and hit the thrusters, squeezing the ship through a narrow gap just in time. The crowd gasped, and Jake couldn't help but smile. He was doing it. He was navigating the maze like a pro. Each successful maneuver filled him with confidence, and he felt as if he were flying on pure adrenaline. As he continued, Jake noticed Farkan, and the other alien pilots were gaining on him. They were skilled, but he was determined not to let them catch up. He pushed the ship to its limits, flying faster and more confidently. He needed to find a way to maintain his lead. In the distance, he could see a fork in the maze, two paths diverging ahead. Jake remembered his training on the simulation and quickly assessed which route looked less congested. Without hesitation, he chose the left path, trusting his instincts. The other pilots followed closely behind him. The left path opened up into a wide area filled with floating asteroids. Jake's heart raced as he navigated through the large rocks. He could hear the engines of the other ships roaring behind him, and he felt the pressure mounting. The crowd's cheers spurred him on, and he pushed himself harder. Suddenly, he spotted a group of smaller asteroids clustered together, forming a dangerous obstacle. He had to act fast. He pulled the control stick hard to the right, twisting the ship and narrowly avoiding a collision. The ship trembled, but he held firm. With a quick adjustment of the thrusters, he shot past the obstacles, feeling the rush of success. As he pressed forward, Jake realized he was nearing the final section of the maze. The finish line was in sight, and he could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins. But he had to stay focused. The final turns were the most challenging, and one wrong move could cost him the race. The asteroids loomed ahead, and Jake steeled himself. He concentrated on the path, calculating his moves. He could hear the engines of the other pilots behind him, closing in. With each turn, he felt the pressure mount, but he pushed it aside. He was determined to win. With a final burst of speed, Jake launched into the last stretch of the maze. He could see the finish line ahead, the crowd roaring in excitement. He flew faster, feeling the thrill of victory within reach. As he crossed the finish line, the cheers of the crowd surrounded him, echoing in his ears. He had navigated the maze successfully, and he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Surprising the aliens. After Jake's thrilling victory in the maze, the atmosphere at the spaceport was electric. The crowd buzzed with excitement, their cheers ringing through the air. Jake climbed out of his ship, feeling the rush of adrenaline still coursing through him. He had done it again. The aliens surrounded him, their faces filled with admiration and disbelief. It was a moment he would never forget. As Jake made his way through the crowd, he caught glimpses of familiar faces. Zira beamed at him, her eyes sparkling with pride. "You were amazing, Jake," she exclaimed, rushing forward to give him a congratulatory hug. Jake smiled, feeling grateful for her support. He had trained hard, but it was her guidance that had helped him succeed. Jake's victories had sparked a newfound respect among the alien pilots. They had watched him grow from a nervous human into a skilled racer, and they couldn't help but be impressed. Varkan, the blue-skinned pilot who had once doubted him, approached with a look of surprise. "You've really surprised us, human," he admitted, his voice genuine. "I didn't think you could handle the maze, but you flew like a pro." Jake felt a surge of pride at Varkan's words. "Thanks. I just did my best," he replied, trying to sound humble. But inside, he was thrilled. He had earned the respect of one of the top pilots in the galaxy. As the crowd began to disperse, Jake noticed a group of aliens gathered around a large screen. They were eagerly discussing the race and replaying the highlights. Curious, he walked over to join them. The screen showed his daring maneuvers through the maze, and the crowd erupted in cheers every time he narrowly avoided an asteroid. "Look at that move," one alien shouted, pointing at the screen as Jake squeezed through a tight gap. "I can't believe he made it." Jake felt a sense of warmth and acceptance. For so long, he had felt like an outsider among the aliens, but now he was one of them. They celebrated his victories as if they were their own, and it filled him with joy. He had come to love this world and its inhabitants. As the evening wore on, a special ceremony was planned to honor the top pilots of the race. Jake learned that he would be awarded a medal for his performance, and the thought made his heart swell with pride. He had come so far, and this was proof of his hard work and determination. When it was time for the ceremony, Jake stood with the other top pilots on a stage in front of the crowd. The lights illuminated their faces, and the atmosphere was filled with excitement. The alien leaders spoke, praising their skills and the spirit of competition. Jake felt a mixture of nerves and excitement as he prepared to accept his medal. When his name was called, Jake stepped forward, a wide smile on his face. As he received the medal, he could feel the weight of the moment. This was a recognition of his efforts, and he wanted to make the most of it. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers ringing in his ears. "Thank you, everyone," Jake called out, his voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without all of you. Your support means everything to me." The crowd cheered louder, and he felt a sense of belonging he had never known before. But there was one thing Jake wanted to do next. Show the aliens that humans had more to offer than just racing skills. He had spent so much time trying to fit in and prove himself, but now he wanted to surprise them in a different way. With Zira's help, he began planning a special demonstration that would showcase the unique talents of humanity. Over the next few days, Jake and Zira worked tirelessly to prepare for the demonstration. They gathered supplies and equipment, planning an event that would highlight human creativity and innovation. Jake wanted to show the aliens that humans were more than just pilots. They were also artists, engineers, and thinkers. Finally, the day of the demonstration arrived. The spaceport was buzzing with anticipation, and aliens of all kinds gathered to see what Jake had in store. He stood in front of a large crowd, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. This was his chance to surprise them. "Welcome, everyone," Jake began, his voice clear and confident. "Today, I want to show you what humans can do beyond racing. We are creative beings, and I hope you will enjoy this demonstration." The crowd listened intently, their curiosity piqued. As the demonstration started, Jake unveiled a series of inventions and art pieces he had created. He showcased a small robot that could paint, demonstrating its skills by creating a beautiful mural on a canvas. The colors blended together, forming an intricate design that left the audience in awe. The crowd gasped in amazement as the robot worked. "This is amazing." An alien shouted, "Humans can create art." Next, Jake introduced a small device that could convert solar energy into electricity. He explained how it worked, emphasizing humanity's commitment to innovation and sustainability. The aliens were fascinated, asking questions and expressing their admiration for his creativity. Jake felt a surge of pride as he engaged with the audience. They were intrigued by his ideas and inventions, and he could see their perceptions of humans shifting. No longer were they just competitors in a race. They were individuals with unique talents and skills. As the demonstration came to an end, the crowd erupted in applause. Jake smiled widely, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over him. He had not only surprised the aliens, but had also shown them the depth of human creativity. That day marked a turning point for Jake. He had gained their respect as a pilot, but he had also opened their eyes to the potential of humanity. As he looked out at the cheering crowd, he realized that he had truly become a part of this extraordinary galaxy, and he couldn't wait to see what adventures awaited him next. The final victory. The day of the final race arrived, and excitement filled the air at the spaceport. Jake felt a mix of nerves and anticipation as he prepared for what would be the most important race of his life. After proving himself in previous races and surprising the aliens with his creativity, he was ready to take on the ultimate challenge. This time, he would face the best pilots in the galaxy, and he wanted to leave a lasting impression. Jake stood by his ship, running through his preparations one last time. The vessel was in perfect shape, its shiny exterior glinting in the sunlight. He took a moment to remember how far he had come, from a nervous human in an alien world to a respected pilot among his peers. His heart swelled with pride. He had worked hard, and now it was time to show everyone what he could do. Zira joined him, her expression filled with encouragement. "You've got this, Jake," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Just remember to trust yourself and have fun out there. You've already made us proud." Jake smiled at her support. He knew that no matter what happened, he had the respect of his fellow pilots and the admiration of the crowd. As the countdown began, Jake climbed into the cockpit, the familiar controls comforting beneath his fingers. The crowd gathered outside, their cheers ringing through the air. He could feel their energy, and it fueled his determination. 5, 4, 3. The tension in the air grew thicker, and Jake focused on the maze ahead. He visualized each turn, every obstacle, and how he would navigate through them. 2, 1, go. With that final signal, he pressed the throttle, and the ship roared to life. The rush of acceleration pushed him back into his seat, and he soared into the sky, the thrill of the race coursing through him. The first part of the maze was familiar territory, and Jake felt a surge of confidence as he navigated the tight turns. He could see the other pilots flying close behind him, but he focused on his own path. Each twist and turn was an opportunity to showcase his skills, and he was determined to make the most of it. As they entered the first narrow section, Jake glanced at the other pilots, including Varkin. They were skilled, but he was ready. He maneuvered expertly through the tight spaces, his instincts guiding him. The crowd erupted in cheers as he made daring passes, and Jake felt the thrill of competition surge within him. Suddenly, the path opened up into a wider area filled with floating asteroids. Jake knew this was where he could take the lead. He pushed the ship to its limits, weaving between the rocks with precision. The roar of the crowd motivated him as he heard their cheers echoing through the air. But the maze was not finished testing him. Just ahead, he spotted a large asteroid field that formed a dangerous barrier. Varkin and the other pilots were close behind, and Jake knew he had to act quickly. He recalled Zira's advice about staying calm under pressure. He took a deep breath and focused on the path ahead. With swift movements, Jake pulled the control stick to the right, expertly maneuvering through the field. The asteroids loomed large, but he danced around them like a skilled performer. He could feel the thrill of victory just within reach as he glanced at the sensors, noting his lead. But Varkin was right on his tail, refusing to back down. Jake felt the pressure mounting, but he wouldn't let it distract him. He pushed harder, focusing on the finish line ahead. "I can do this," he thought, determination coursing through him. As they approached the final section of the maze, Jake noticed a particularly narrow gap between two massive asteroids. This was a risky move, but he felt confident in his abilities. He had practiced this maneuver countless times. With adrenaline pumping, he made the decision. "Here goes nothing," Jake whispered to himself. He veered sharply to the left and squeezed the ship through the tight space, barely making it through. The ship shook, but he held on tight. As he emerged from the other side, he could hear the crowd gasp, followed by thunderous applause. Jake glanced back to see Varkin, attempting to follow him. Come on," he urged himself, pushing the ship forward with all his strength. He could see the finish line ahead, and with every ounce of energy, he accelerated. The roar of the crowd grew louder as he approached the final stretch. He could see the lights of the finish line flashing, and he felt a rush of excitement. "This is it," he thought, determination filling him. With one last push, he flew past the finish line, the ship roaring with power. The crowd erupted in cheers, their excitement echoing through the spaceport. Jake had done it. He had won the final race, defeating the best pilots in the galaxy. As he slowed the ship and climbed out, he was met with a wave of applause and cheers. Zira rushed over to him, her face beaming with pride. "You did it, Jake. You're incredible," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. Jake felt a rush of happiness and gratitude. He had not only won the race, but had also earned a place in the hearts of the aliens. As the award ceremony began, Jake stood alongside Varkin and the other top pilots. This time, there was no tension between them, only mutual respect and admiration. Varkin leaned in and said, "You've shown us what a human can do. I'll never underestimate you again." Jake smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie he had never expected. When Jake received his trophy, the cheers of the crowd filled the air. This moment was more than just a victory. It was a celebration of everything he had achieved. He had proven himself not only as a skilled pilot, but also as a valued member of this incredible galaxy. As he looked out at the cheering crowd, Jake felt a deep sense of belonging. He had come a long way from the nervous human who first arrived in this alien world. He was no longer just a competitor. He was a friend and an inspiration. In that moment, Jake knew that this was just the beginning of his adventures. He had faced challenges, overcome doubts, and surprised the aliens in ways he had never imagined. The galaxy was vast, and he was ready to explore every corner of it. With new friends by his side and the thrill of racing in his heart, Jake felt unstoppable.